Good morning. So my job, and I guess my role in life at the moment, is to help children be as independent and resilient as they can be, both in their day-to-day life now, but as they move forward into the future. And as Donna pointed out, I do that in a few different ways. So I'm a paediatric occupational therapist, and I work with families and children in their homes and in the school setting. I'm the director of Barefoot Nature Play, and I'm also the mother of 3 boys. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today as a mum, and the journey of our family to get our kids outside, which I will. There's 1,000,001 photos of them. I don't often talk as a mum to groups of people, so this presentation had to be highly vetted by the boys, and there was a lot of discussion about what could be shown in public and what couldn't. Anyway, here we go. So my boys are now 7, 10 and 13 years old. They're not littlies anymore, and so we're really finding that the playing field is changing, particularly as we venture into these teenage years. My older son, Oscar, said to me the other day, "Mum, you know, we've got a pretty good life. I know we've got a nice house, we go to a good school, da-da-da-da-da. But when it comes to technology, we are well below average." And I said, "Oh, well, I feel like I've done a really good job, darling. Thank you. Thanks for the feedback." Okay. So before we get going about our family, I just wanted to, and we've already touched on this morning, this parenting gig. The second we get our children home, we're told to lie them on their back, but they don't bloody well go to sleep on their back, do they? You know, there's developmental delays, language disorders. Once they start moving, we're told to take all risk out of their lives. We're running around baby-proofing so that there's nothing that they can harm themselves with. As they get older, we've got to worry about where they're going, who they're going with. Some children are socialising too much. Some of them aren't socialising enough. You know, as parents, we've got a list of ingredients that we cannot use ever. Reminds me of the movie Bad Mums, if anyone has seen it. We clean too much or we don't clean enough. The list goes on and on and on and on. And it is really, in defence of parents, no wonder that we've got a generation of neurotic, stressed, risk-averse, helicopter-type parents. And I'm not trying to discount any of those issues. They're all important issues. But I would suggest that these are issues that affect the minority of families and children. And what's happened over a period of time is that they have been generalised to the entire population. And as part of that, we are forgetting what is really important and what we all know here in this room, I'm sure, in our guts, to be really good stuff for kids that we know makes them happy, healthy and confident children who will then turn into happy, healthy and confident adults. And so, in my role as an OT, I talk day in and day out about getting kids moving, about giving them multi-sensory experiences and engaging all of their senses in their day-to-day lives. And over the years, I've talked more and more about getting kids outside to play, because outside is that unpredictable, every day is different environment that we don't get from commercially purchased toys or therapeutic equipment. As the director of Barefoot Nature Play, we are all about getting children off screens and outdoors, introducing risk into their play and really encouraging multi-age play amongst different groups of kids. But it is as a parent that I have really faced my biggest challenges over the years. And I read off my notes and lose my place as I go along. So, it's really hard, I find, the day in and day out as a mother. Just to give you a little bit of a background about our family, my husband is from Turkey, and so when he came to Australia, all he knew about Australia was everything he had seen on every documentary about the poisonous animals that we have over here. My mother was an adamant anti-camper. She was the type of person who didn't pump her own petrol because that wasn't ladylike. I wasn't allowed to swim as a child because she already thought I'd have big enough shoulders and she didn't want them to be bigger. So that's my background. I was the 6-foot ballerina because she wanted me to stand up straight as an adult. And then we've got our 3 boisterous, energetic boys. So as a family, we've had a really interesting journey, to say the least, and that's what I would like to share a little bit with you over the next few minutes. So many of our efforts earlier on, when the boys were younger, I really think were just survival instinct. We were tired. We just kept having boys, and they were noisy and they were energetic. So holidays in cramped apartments were really, really quickly replaced with camping trips in beautiful locations. We're starting to talk about our first walk-in and walk-out trip up at Mount Glorious, and that's with a view to doing the Great Walk up at the Sunshine Coast in a couple of years. So really happy with that. Another survival instinct has been, in an effort to reduce sibling rivalry and the competitiveness between all of the boys, we've worked really hard to identify each of their individual interests and passions. And as much as practicable, to follow the boys in that journey with those. And that's seen us do many and varied things, I guess. So at the moment we're mountain biking, we've done archery, kayaking, abseiling, all codes of football, a whole range of things outside. But as we grew as a family, it became a little bit less about survival. We got a tiny bit more sleep, although everyone was up at 5 this morning. And we started to get a bit more thoughtful and mindful about where we were headed with things in general. And I guess as part of that, we really started to make being outdoors, or wanted to make being outdoors, part of our everyday life, and not just a leisure pursuit or something that we did on holidays or on the weekends. So some of the things we've done, we've moved really close to the boys' school so that they can ride to and from school, and they can get to most of their extracurricular activities without us involved in it. All of us can walk to the shops, to the doctors, the barbers. Many of our friends live in the local area. The boys are free to go to local parks and sports fields by themselves or with their friends. And as they get older, their roaming circle increases because they get to know the community better and they get to know the environment around them. And I'm really proud of that one because that's a bit of a battle in terms of having other kids allowed to do the same thing with them and having their peers along with them. We try to surround ourselves with like-minded people so that we know if our boys are somewhere else for the day, then they're likely at a house that will have them outside and active and involved in things rather than sitting on screens. We've orchestrated things so that our backyard is the place to be in our neighbourhood. We do have we've got 5 different kinds of fences. A couple of them are big ones, but they've set up ropes that go over backwards and forwards, and so the kids can climb over the fences. And talking about things that kids can manipulate, we've got a weird and wonderful array. At the moment we've got 5 of those big wooden electrical cable reels in the backyard. We've got some waterproofing material, there's bricks. Tim the tree man kindly donated some of the trees. I think that might have messed up his chopper, so that's why we got them. But all of that's in the backyard, and it's there for them to create and explore and build. And it doesn't look beautiful, but oh my gosh, they have a ball. We've got a fire pit out there for the evenings. We've got scooters, bikes, pogo sticks, you name it, it's in our backyard. And we've recently put up an outdoor movie screen so that we can have families around in the summer and just sort of have that outdoor experience. I was thinking as I wrote it, I sound a bit like Mike Lanza, who wrote Playbookwood, but I think he spent something like $40,000 on his backyard, and ours, a lot of it's free. Anyway, the other thing is we like to cook and we like to eat fresh food. So as part of that, we've got chickens in the backyard. We plant we grow our own herbs. We've got a worm farm, that kind of thing. And I think the boys' engagement with that has been up and down over the years, but also very varied. So, one of the chickens got a red bum, and so Oscar looked up on the internet, well, what could be wrong with the chicken? And he planned the treatment and, drove all of that, so the chicken is now healthy and laying again. Eli likes to cook and eat, so there's a motive to his cooking. But it also means that he is involved in the herbs. He looks after them, he waters them, and he picks them and he uses them in his cooking. And Noah, who is our youngest and is our biggest rat bag, he loves getting the worms out and scaring anybody new who comes into the house with these worms. But it's been interesting. There's 2 girls who come to their grandmother's house a few doors up, and they're down here often, and they used to run screaming from the worms. They're now the ones that come up and get all of the, you know, the veggie scraps and things like that, and take it down and check on them and remove the mouldy bits and that sort of thing. So I think that sort of, approach is really helping with their connection to nature, and also touching on that view of sustainability and being part of an environment that you want to continue. So it's very, very easy for me to stand up here and make us sound like we are the Von Trapp family from the Sound of Music. We are far from perfect. As I said, we've got teenage years. I am really, really struggling at the moment with children who show up at our house with devices, and that's all they want to do. They want to sit and they link in together and all of that sort of thing. Some days we're strong enough to really put a foot down and get them outside, and other days I kind of shrivel under the gazes of these teenage boys that just think, well, who are you? So that's a really, really tough one. We've had issues with our neighbours in terms of the noise of the kids and the balls going over the fence. They took their balls and they actually popped a couple. So I would suggest that's another issue in terms of tolerance of children. And in terms of noise, I'm talking about them calling over the fence to see if their friends are there. So dogs are allowed to bark for 5 to 10 minutes an hour. You know, do our children have less rights than dogs?
And there's council people here.
Yeah, so and a couple of weekends ago I treated myself to a birthday party, which was a fabulous night, but I spent all day Sunday wishing the boys would sit down, shut up and watch a movie. So we're not perfect, we're not, it's not a Pollyanna thing. I'm the lazy parent that someone mentioned earlier. But in general, we have the outdoors and an active lifestyle and a connection with nature really, really firmly on our radar. So whilst we're not perfect, we will keep trying. Back to my little family, when we're outside, particularly when we've got nothing much to do, we're really happy. Our boys, I watch them, I work with kids, so I see a lot of kids. I see in our boys a sense of mastery and competence that I often see missing in children of this generation. And they're always looking for their next challenge and something different to do and, extend themselves. And it's not just the kids. So Ibrahim, my Turkish husband, is now very happy to camp on the ground and go out, sleep on the floor, which is something he would never have dreamed of doing when he came to Australia. He loves cycling. He's part of the Lycra pack down at Sandgate. I've started kite surfing recently. I've got the best bike bag in Sandgate, so I ride around a lot. And to top it all off, Santa might be getting us a stand-up paddleboard for Christmas. So our journey is it's far from over, but I'm really confident with the choices that we've made that spending a lot of time outdoors will be part of it into the future. And I'm really hopeful. I had written this, and it's not in as brilliant terms, as Sue mentioned earlier, but I think probably what I'm thinking is in terms of this post-humanist and common world approach, is that it becomes less about we've got these two bits that we have to mesh together, but that the boys in the future, it's been part of their life from a very early age, and it becomes part of them. So that's my hope for the future. Thank you very much for your time.